Welcome to this quick start video, getting started with Info Explorer. My name's Anne from Orchid Systems. In this video, we're going to first download and install Info Explorer, and then we're going to analyze using Info Explorer, and for this we're going to use two of our sample cubes, the AP Outstanding Balances and the GL Detail by Account. Initially, we're going to go to orchid.systems, download Info Explorer, install Info Explorer, and then review the sample cubes that we have on our website, orchid.systems. And we're going to download AP Outstanding Balances and GL Detail by Account. To download Info Explorer, go to orchid.systems, Product Downloads, and you'll find Info Explorer on the first page. You need to fill in your download details, fill in your reseller details, and submit the form. And then you can install from the downloaded file. After installing Info Explorer, you can run from your Start programs. You can add to your Start bar, or add to your taskbar, or even add to your Sage 300 desktop by adding a new icon to the desktop and browse to find the directory where you have just installed the programs. We have downloaded Info Explorer and installed Info Explorer. We're now going to review the sample cubes, and in particular we're going to download the AP Outstanding Balances cubed. To review the sample cubes, you can go to orchid.systems, select Resources, and Info Explorer Sample Cubes. The cubes are categorized by module. So selecting Accounts Payable, we see the sample cubes that are available for Accounts Payable, Accounts Receivable, Bin Tracking, General Ledger, and so on. So depending on your area that you want to analyze, you can download a sample cube and then use that on your own company data. Or from within Info Explorer itself, you can click on Download Sample Cubes, which takes you to the same page on our website. But now when you select a cube, it will be opened automatically in Info Explorer. So we're going to click on Accounts Payable and select the AP Outstanding Balances cube. And the cube is opened with the data that was in the database when we last refreshed the cube, and in this case it was last refreshed in 2017 on our sample data. Having downloaded the AP Outstanding Balances cube, we're now going to start working with this cube. We're going to connect it to our own database and refresh the data. And then we're going to see how we can start slicing and dicing to look at different aspects of the data that's in the cube. To refresh the cube on your own data, you need to go to the properties of the cube and change the connection details. And these are the SQL details that you're filling in, the server name, database name, and SQL user to use. And once you've changed the connection details, we would recommend that you save this cube. And then when you refresh, any parameters that are required will be prompted for. And this is the date as of which we're going to age the AP balances. So I'm going to enter the 31st of May 2020 based on my data, and the cube and views are refreshed based on the current date and time. And I'm now going to select the Total Outstanding view to see what we can do to explore this data. So we're currently looking at the amount due, the amount overdue, due in the current month, due next month, and due in the next 2 months or greater than 2 months. So the total outstanding amount is aged based on the parameter date that I entered at the time of refreshing. I'm just going to simplify this view so I just see the amount due. So we can drag the facts from the displayed area to the available area for those ones we don't want to see. And now we can see the amount due is 8.5 million. And we can drag down the year to see which year those amounts are due. I've got some AP invoices, the majority due in 2019 and some in 2020. So if we just select the years we want to see, so for any dimension, we can click on the filter and select the values that we want to see. And we're seeing the total for our entire company. If we want to see this broken down by vendor group, we could drag the vendor group. So I'm dragging the vendor group dimension from the available area to one of my rows. So now I'm seeing the total amount for Orc Ltd split out by vendor group. And if we wanted to see how that broke out by vendor, we could then get the vendor code and drag it down. And so on. We can change our rows and columns. And if I wanted to see a total for my vendor groups, I could go to the display and show my row totals. So now I'm seeing the total for the intercompany vendor group is 47, whereas the total for my inventory purchases is 5 million. And if this was a view that I wanted to see every day, I could copy the view and rename it Total by Vendor Group and Vendor, and drag it to the positioning. And I could have left my total outstanding as it was originally. So just dragging the facts in that I want to see. On my new view, I could simplify the view if I only want to see it by vendor group. And if I want to see this tomorrow, I would save the cube. And tomorrow when I refresh my cube, all the other views, including my new one, total by vendor group and vendor, would be refreshed. And in the same way that I changed the rows from vendor group to vendor, I could do the same for my columns. So I could see the total amount due split out by quarter, 33,000 in quarter 2, and even split that out by month, showing me in quarter 2 it's split between May and June. So any of the dimensions can be rows or columns in your current view. We've seen how to slice and dice our data to display different values as our rows and columns, and in fact how to save a different configuration of rows and columns as a new view for easy access the next time you want to use this cube. We're now going to look at sorting and filtering data and how to find exceptions. I'm just going to simplify this view a bit. And then per vendor group, I'm going to display the vendor within the vendor group. And we can see the different vendors within the different vendor groups. We can sort the rows based on a selected column. So in this case, I'd be sorting my vendors or vendor groups based on my 2019 data. So now my vendors are sorted ascending within the vendor groups. And we can filter by pre-selecting dimension values, or we can add a dynamic filter, for example, to filter all our rows where the vendor group is equal to intercompany. And these filters can be turned on or off by selecting this option on the view itself. We can edit this pre-filter and select a different value. So now we're seeing all the vendors in the inventory purchases group. And the figures are sorted ascending by the 2019 year value. And we could toggle between sorting our vendors ascending by our 2019 amount due or descending by our 2019 amount due by clicking on the Sort by Vendor. In addition to filtering and sorting, we can add formulas, which we can also filter and sort vendors by, and add formatting to the formulas or to the base facts that have been brought into the cube. To add a new formula, you go to Edit Fields and click Create a New Fact. And I'm going to add a new fact which is going to rank the amount due descending. So it's going to be a fact, and these are the type of formulas you can add. You can count the number of records, you can do a distinct count of values in the cube, calculate the minimum, maximum or average value, or write your own formula, for example, to calculate margin percent. But for our descending rank, we just need to select descending rank and say which field we're going to rank, and in our case it's amount due. And when we save this, you will see it's automatically added an amount due rank, and it is sorted descending because we had previously sorted our vendors by amount due. But it's being ranked as well in the 2019 years and the 2020 year and in total. So we could now sort our vendors based on the descending rank of the amount due. And in this case, the smallest vendor is 1750, the largest vendor is 4540. And if we change our sort order, we would see our largest vendor first. Another formula that we had added earlier is the percentage of column. So if I drag that down into our facts, we will now see that Leon Industries is 28.59% of the inventory purchases, whereas Gould Manufacturing is 3.59% of the inventory purchases. And if we deselect our vendor group based on inventory purchases, we will see that all the vendors are both ranked within vendor group and the percentage of column is calculated, as well as the percentage of the inventory group per total. So 0.06% is the intercompany total, 67% is our inventory purchases total. And if we collapse our rows, we will see just the totals for the vendor groups and the ranking and the percentage of column. And expanding selectively, we would see the individual vendors within each of the groups. And you can add formatting, both in terms of color and the number of decimal places that are displayed, by creating the style and applying it to the appropriate field. So if we want to have a new style on our percentage of column, we can create a new style, and we want to do conditional formatting on our percentage column, so we're going to create a red style, a green style, and orange. And then create a new rule for our percentage column. So when the value is between 0 and 30, we're going to make it go green. Between 30 and 50, we're going to make it go orange. And greater than 50, we're going to make it go red. And now we have our percentage column color-coded accordingly. In addition to formulas and formatting, we can create charts and dashboards. For our graph, I'm just going to simplify this view. I'm going to look at the year 2020 only, turn off the totals of the columns, and look at vendor groups only, and the amount due only. To create a new chart, we select New Chart, and we can see what chart type we want, maybe a bar chart or a pie chart. If that's what we want, we then just go File, Save As, and this is pie by vendor group. And for your dashboards, any of your views or charts can be placed on the dashboard. So to create a new dashboard, we can then just drag our new chart, drag our total outstanding, or as many of the views as we want. And then we can change the size of the components as we see fit. And now we have 3x1 dashboard. And the last thing we're going to have a look at is drill down to the underlying records in the cube and drill through to the Sage 300 screens. When you're looking at a total, you can always right-hand mouse button and drill down, and it will show you the underlying transactions that make up that particular total. So these are all the US vendors that fall into that USA vendor group. And from here, you can Control-C, Control-V to paste into Excel if you need to do that. Drill through allows you to drill back into the data entry screen for the associated transaction, or the master file record for the records that you're looking at. So if we extend our view to look at our vendors, and within vendors we look at our document numbers. And for example, if we were to right-hand mouse button on this particular amount, we can either drill through to the AP invoice, which we'll do shortly, or drill through to the AP vendor activity. So it's picking up which vendor you're looking at and which document you're looking at. And now I need to fill in my Sage 300 credentials, and it's only at this stage that I'm using a Sage 300 LAN pack. And here's the vendor activity for this particular vendor that I drilled into, 7,300, and I've got all the full functionality of the AP vendor activity. Or I could choose to drill through to the AP invoice itself. And now it's going to open up the AP invoice screen. And because I have Document Management Link installed, I will have access to the AP invoice attachment itself if I had attached it in. But we're seeing the individual invoice for the transaction number where I clicked drill through. We have now seen some of the highlights of the Info Explorer analysis tools in analyzing the AP Outstanding Invoices cube. We're now going to look at another sample cube on General Ledger single year history. Back in Info Explorer, we're going to download one of the GL sample cubes. And this is the General Ledger detail by single year. Connect it to our current database. Save this cube. And click refresh. And the fiscal year that we want to look at is 2020. Similarly to our accounts payable cube, we now have different views on this data, but the dimensions are based on the general ledger data, as are the facts. In this view, I am looking at the account group, and it is split out by region. So we could select some of the account groups, for example, revenue and cost of sales, and then include division in our analysis too, either as a row or as a column. So now we're seeing each of the divisions split out by the regions. And if we want to see the natural account, we can drag down the account segment. And now we see the natural account, the division, and the region. And this particular cube also has the batch entry number. So if we drag that down too, we can now drill through back into the Sage 300 screen where this entry was posted. And as we can in any of our cubes, we could add formulas, filter, format, conditional formatting, add dashboards and charts. For example, looking at our income statement by account group, if our expectation for our fixed charges were that they were more or less the same month on month, we could drag down the fiscal period and then compare month on month. But to aid this process, we could add a new formula for our percentage increase. And this is a fact, sum of the value, but we're going to display it as a percentage variation across. And now we have a percentage variation across the different months, so it's easier to pick up the anomalies. But let's use color coding as well to make these stand out higher. So go back to our % increase, edit the style, and initially we'll create two styles: red, where we're going to make the background color go light red, and green, where the background color will be light green. And then for our % increase, we will create a new rule from -1000 to 30, and red between 30 and 100. And now we see our exceptions being highlighted more easily. And now if we filter on our fixed charges and drag down our account, we see that the anomaly is created largely in the rent, the office rent 6560. Using conditional formatting highlights exceptions more readily than looking for the numbers yourself. And we can also see we can open multiple cubes at the same time. For more information on Info Explorer and more of the functionality that you can apply to the cubes, please refer to our website. Info Explorer comes in 3 different editions. Info Explorer Lite, which is free. You still need to apply for a serial number. The free version is restricted to sample cubes only. That means you can't amend the query, add new fields, you cannot create new cubes, and you cannot export the cube data. The standard Info Explorer license allows you all the functionality I have demonstrated and more. You can access the sample cubes, you can amend the queries in the sample cubes, and you can create your own cubes and export the cube data. There's also an Info Explorer edition with a write-back license, which allows you to do top-down and bottom-up budgeting based on your current data, and at a single click of a button, update Sage 300 directly with this data. After downloading and installing Info Explorer, you will have 30 days to apply for an activation code from Orchid. You need this activation code whether you're running Info Explorer Lite, Standard, or with Writeback. You will get a different activation code depending on the functionality you have purchased or if you're running the free version. Please refer to our website for more information on Info Explorer, including training guides and training videos.